Hi guys, I'm Black Iris and today I will share with you some of my favorite Gothic horror movies. It's not truly Gothic without some unalivings and tragic romance. You have been warned. The stories I'm reviewing are pretty strong, so if this makes you uncomfortable, just know I'm not going to spoil the plot, but I suggest them for the vibes. You can Google the titles and see if it's something you can handle. I saw the first one with my auntie and she kept screaming and covering her eyes. What an experience. Crimson Peak. Del Toro has a thing for dark fairy tale and twisted dramatic stories, and I'm all here for it. The horror elements are used in a peculiar way. His style is immediately recognizable. Psychological, poetic, I dare to say, combined with the airy details of the ambience, give us a sense of timeless melancholia and a crude edge of realism to the characters that face really grotesque situations. This movie could be a representation of repressed feelings, things we cannot show to society, subconscious fears and desires. The ghosts themselves are a very used metaphor in literature for past traumas and secrets, haunting the present of the living. The performances convey danger, sensuality, as they are defined by visceral visual aspects who reveal inner motives behind the veil of what is really expressed with words. The mysteries are developed with a sense of anticipation, without judgment, almost with a delicate grace that balances the darkness of the events. A deep sense of ineluctability permeates the story, which is both sweetened by the romantic undertones as they become more heavy with the connotation that evolves by the culmination of the act. If you live for Gothic literature, Victorian aesthetics, you should devour this movie. The next one changed my perspective on life. Big words, but it's indeed a classic. Needless to say, afterwards I read the entire novel because I couldn't get over it. I was vibing hard with the protagonist's struggles, and she is really a sarcastic babe that could enchant anyone with her authenticity and resilience. And it's Jane Eyre. I know this is not technically horror, but was horrifying for me. The horror in this movie is the one that emerged from history and mundane lives of ordinary people like you and me, trapped in the confines of their own cultures, bringing with them the heavy burden of a society that doesn't accept divergence from the norm the facade wants to project over the true needs and desires of the people. I saw the movie with Mia Wasikowska, so forgive me if you think there are better versions, but this is now imprinted on my retina forever. As you may guess, it's a classical work of fiction with a lot of real challenges of the historical period portrayed with painful accuracy. It's quite direct on abuse and love, themes often intertwined in these kinds of novels. Do not fall in the preconceived notion that this is just romance and tragedy for girls, because if you dare to look at the story with curiosity and open eyes, you will discover that a lot of the struggles that affected women and also men can be seen in different forms in our so-called progressive societies as well. Few things that really stood out. The problem around disability, how often is something that isolates the affected person and their family, the stigma of being poor, the importance of self-reliance and sacrifice ones have to make in order to work and have an education, mistreatment endured by children by their caregivers and other children, the difficulties growing up without a support system. It's not an easy ride, but no journey comes only with sunshines and roses. Actually, this movie is more rainy days. The attitude of the protagonist, full of grace and determination, can teach us a few things about standing up for ourselves. This other banger gives a peculiar understanding of cultish mind control, and for that reason, to me, is a must-see. A Cure for Wellness. Shares a lot of commonality with well-established Gothic tropes while maintaining a fresh originality, creating its own lore. It gets straight to the point, addressing very well the obsession and fears of our modern society. As medical field advances and technology becomes overbearing, here is a chance for something pure. It offers us an escape in an idyllic land. This fairy-like place looks a lot better than our dark, still cities, apparently. As a breathtaking experience, harmonize perfectly the dangers of progress with ancient dilemmas. Make us realize how we actually never change as much as we like to think. What I really cherish is the representation of cult behavior. The characters are so convincing they gave me the ick, and the Doctor reminded me of the stunning performance of Bela Lugosi in The Human Monster. He can be very imposing thanks to the surroundings. They create a suggestive and oppressive atmosphere that fits into his twisted logic. His act is charismatic and scary. Make us question how intelligence and empathy are two separate things. A narcissistic environment against the self-reliance of an isolated person. The tagline for the movie could be, "Do not believe everything they sell you. Just because you want something to be real doesn't mean it is." There are merciless people out there that could use our vulnerability for their own profits. If you like the feeling of claustrophobic hospitals and majestic castles, you must watch it. I cannot help but be grimly fascinated by the contrasting facets, always torn between beautiful and repulsive. This is the most Gothic and romantic aspect of the story, and the Doctor also reminds me of Dracula, Mr. Hyde, and even Hannibal Lecter. They all embody aspects of humanity that we're afraid of showing, the shadow self. At the same time, because of their raw nature, they generate attraction. They are a relevant part of our hidden consciousness. All the characters maintain a morally grey area, which is remarkable. The story plays a lot around duality and reproductive organ symbolism, which is another form of complementary duality in nature, if you really think about it. Use it well here, as in Alien, just got us really freak out. To me, the use of this trope is indicative of the artistic craft. They choose to bother us with persistent reminders of our unsettling human condition that confines us to its roles, and in the end, to its means, a metaphor for mortality, which is only partially avoidable via reproduction, something we cannot fully control. The bizarre ambivalence and contrast is also present in the location, artificially made horrors of the asylum, and the beauty of nature. Menacing, yet alluring. The psychological horror here is pretty strong. For some things remind me of the video game Alice Madness Returns, which for Gothic lovers is a must play. The visual experience will leave you full of bliss. And speaking of it, I need to mention Coppola's Dracula. This character unfolds like a flower and got all the spicy darkness and Jungian-like archetypes that you could possibly desire inside one single man, who is many things, has his ever-changing forms. Coppola just decided to invent the most extravagant Gothic masterpiece of all times, and we cannot ignore it. So iconic that even Mignola made a comic book adaptation of it, which is just as good. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you to do so. I must say that I also love Dracula with Bela Lugosi. It's a classic, and I watched every movie I could find of Bela Lugosi, but the Coppola one just got something unique that stood out. And maybe it's Eiko Ishioka. She designed all the costumes and they enhanced the entire performance in a way so intense and beautiful and poetic that words cannot even explain. Is a suggestion of the sense. The atmospheres, everything is based on what the actors are wearing and how they perform accordingly, and as Coppola himself said, the costumes are the setting. This movie is theater, timeless, emotionally charged human experience, but most of all, living art. A tragedy more close to fairy tale than anything else. I would like to praise Sadie Frost, who interpreted Lucy. She's my favorite vampire, and the most iconic dark feminine portrayal ever. And talking about deadly ladies, as I always do, I throw you for last an Italian cult movie, I lunghi capelli della morte, the long hair of death. The setting is a late medieval feudal village where decadence and brutality are the norm. The atmosphere is insufferable. Here, beauty is a curse and can only attract the wrong attention. The story follows the lives of a woman accused of witchcraft and her daughters. This movie conveys the cruelest mindset of a society, devastating use of power for personal gain against the well-being of other people. The consequences are ignorance, illnesses, superstition, any type of violence plague the country, while aristocrats think only about themselves, satisfying their own lowest impulses. They reign without any care for their subjects, with the help of the religious authorities that are no better. In fact, they maintain this structure, controlling with fear-mongering propaganda the people. It is a movie about abuse as much as revenge. The female resistance is portrayed as cleverness, seduction, resilience, but is a path of suffering. Gaining such strength can make women endure pain and injustice, even access their oppressors in moments of weakness, but at the same time require them to sacrifice innocence and peace of mind. It is the price of acquiring some of the brutal characteristics of their persecutors in order to survive. In a way, it reminds me of Belladonna of Sadness. The tragic, morbid sensuality mixed with danger inside the constricting wall of a castle, the constant menace of death, makes it the perfect chilling addiction for an avid Gothic horror maniac. Plus, supernatural elements can for sure appear in such dreadful environment. Barbara Steele, diva of terror, really gives the right spooky edge to the character. She makes the haunted narrative and the macabre atmosphere filled with rage, truly unforgettable. Thanks for watching, Eldritch Creatures. If you want more on this subject, just let me know in the comments. Have a creepy day or night.